The signal moved faster than light itself. It jumped through relay stations, bounced off communication satellites, and spread through the neural networks of 1,000 different civilizations. Within 6 standard rotations, every species in the known galaxy had received the same message. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of absolute terror. Emergency Protocol 7. All vessels must avoid the Sol system. Coordinates locked. Quarantine zone established. Do not approach under any circumstances. Admiral Ketherix of the Valkyrie Collective read the message for the 3rd time. His 4 eyes blinked in confusion as he stood on the bridge of his flagship. The Valkyrie had ruled their sector of space for 12,000 years. They had conquered 67 worlds and brought peace to countless systems through their military strength. Nothing in the galaxy frightened them. "What is this Sol system?" he asked his navigation officer. The young officer pulled up the star charts. A small yellow sun appeared on the holographic display, surrounded by 8 planets. The 3rd planet from the sun was marked with a red warning symbol. "It is a minor system, Admiral. Single star classification. The dominant species calls themselves humans. They achieved faster than light travel only 200 years ago. They are considered a primitive civilization by galactic standards." Ketherix made a sound of disgust. "Primitive? And the entire galaxy is warning us to stay away from primitives?" He walked closer to the display and studied the small blue planet. It looked peaceful. It looked weak. The Valkyrie had conquered worlds 10 times its size without losing a single ship. "Who sent this broadcast?" he demanded. The communication officer checked her screens. Her face turned pale, which was remarkable for a species with purple skin. "Admiral, the broadcast originated from the Dominion of Krath." The bridge fell silent. The Dominion of Krath was the oldest and most powerful empire in the galaxy. They had existed for over 100,000 years. They had weapons that could destroy stars and armies that numbered in the trillions. If the Krath were warning everyone to stay away from this Sol system, there had to be a reason. But Ketherix did not become an admiral by following orders blindly. He wanted to understand. He wanted to know what could possibly make the mighty Krath afraid of a species that had barely learned to travel between stars. "Set course for the Sol system," he commanded. His officers stared at him in shock. "Admiral, the broadcast clearly states—" "I heard the broadcast," Ketherix interrupted. "I want to see these humans for myself. We will approach with caution, observe from a distance, and return with intelligence. The Valkyrie Collective deserves to know what we are supposedly hiding from." The journey took 17 days through hyperspace. During that time, Ketherix received 14 more warnings from different species, all telling him to turn back. The Thesian Republic begged him to reconsider. The merchant guilds of Proxima offered him enormous wealth to change course. Even the Krath themselves sent a personal message from their supreme commander. "Admiral Ketherix, you do not understand what you are doing. The Sol system is not to be approached. Turn back now while you still can." Ketherix ignored them all. He had fought in 37 wars. He had faced enemies that could destroy planets with their minds. He had walked through fields of death and emerged victorious every time. No primitive species could frighten him. When his fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, everything seemed normal at first. The yellow sun burned quietly in the center. The gas giants floated in their orbits. The small rocky planet circled in perfect harmony. Then the sensors detected the debris. "Admiral," the science officer whispered, "we are reading massive amounts of wreckage throughout the system. Ship fragments, station pieces, weapons platforms. There must be thousands of destroyed vessels here." Ketherix felt the first hint of doubt creep into his mind. Identify the wreckage. Who did these ships belong to? The science officer worked frantically at his console. When he looked up, his eyes were wide with fear. "Admiral, the wreckage belongs to a Krath invasion fleet. 40,000 ships. All destroyed. The bridge erupted in panic. Officers shouted at each other. Someone called for an immediate retreat. Kethrix raised his hand for silence, but his own hearts were beating faster now. The Krath had sent 40,000 ships to conquer this system. The Krath, who had never lost a war in 100,000 years. The Krath, whose technology was so advanced it seemed like magic to lesser species. They had sent 40,000 ships, and those ships now floated as broken pieces of metal in the void. "How is this possible?" Kethrix demanded. "What weapons could destroy a Krath fleet?" Before anyone could answer, a new signal appeared on the sensors. A single ship was approaching their position. It was small, perhaps 1/10 the size of a Valkyrie cruiser. Its design was rough and practical, with none of the elegant curves that more advanced species preferred. "Admiral, the approaching vessel is broadcasting an identification signal. It is a human military ship. They are requesting communication." Kethrix straightened his uniform. "Accept the communication." The holographic display flickered, and a human appeared before him. The creature was smaller than Kethrix expected, with soft skin and only 2 eyes. It wore a gray uniform with symbols on its shoulders. Despite its fragile appearance, the human did not seem afraid. In fact, it smiled. "Greetings, Admiral Kethrix of the Valkyrie Collective," the human said. "My name is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earth Navy. I must say, we're surprised to see you here. Didn't you receive the warnings?" Kethrix tried to project confidence. "We received the warnings. We chose to investigate the source of such unusual caution." Captain Chun nodded slowly. "Curiosity. We understand that. It's one of our defining traits as well. But Admiral, you really should have listened to those warnings. They weren't lies or exaggerations. They were mercy." "Mercy?" Kethrix repeated the word. "The Krath sent 40,000 ships to your system. Are you telling me that your primitive species destroyed them all?" The human's smile faded. Something cold appeared in her eyes, something that made Kethrix feel like prey for the first time in his long career. "The Krath made a mistake that many species make when they first encounter us. They looked at our young civilization, our simple technology, our small bodies, and they assumed we were weak. They assumed we would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. They assumed we would break under pressure." Captain Chun took a step closer to the holographic projection, her voice dropping lower. "They didn't understand what we are, Admiral. Humans are not a peaceful species pretending to be warriors. We are warriors who have learned to pretend to be peaceful. Our entire history is written in blood. We have been killing each other for 200,000 years. We have perfected the art of destruction. Every generation, we find new ways to cause death and suffering. When we finally reached the stars, we brought all of that with us." Kethrix wanted to speak, but he found he could not. The human continued. "The Krath arrived with their ancient weapons and their superior technology. They expected us to kneel. Instead, we fought. We fought in ways they couldn't predict. We turned their own ships against them. We used biological weapons that targeted their specific genetic code. We created viruses that corrupted their artificial intelligences. We sent small teams of soldiers onto their command vessels and killed their admirals in their sleep." The human paused, and something like sadness crossed her face. "When the Krath realized they were losing, they tried to retreat. But we didn't let them. We chased them across the system. We hunted them down one by one. And when the last ship fell, we made sure the entire galaxy knew what happens when someone attacks humanity." Kethrix finally found his voice. "You are monsters." Captain Chun shook her head. "No, Admiral. We are survivors. Every species in this galaxy evolved in relative safety. You developed on worlds with stable climates and abundant resources. You built civilizations without ever facing true hardship. Humans did not have that luxury. Our world tried to kill us every day. Ice ages, plagues, predators, natural disasters. We fought for every moment of existence. And that fight shaped us into something different. She gestured to the debris floating outside the viewports. The Krath were the strongest force in the galaxy. They had conquered thousands of species. They had never known defeat. And we broke them completely in 17 days. Not because we had better technology, not because we outnumbered them, but because we refused to stop fighting. Because every human, from the youngest child to the oldest soldier, would rather die than surrender. Because we learned a long time ago that the only way to survive is to make your enemies fear you more than you fear them. Kethrix looked at the wreckage of the Krath fleet. 40,000 ships, millions of soldiers. The greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen. All destroyed by a species that had only been in space for 2 centuries. What do you want from us? He asked quietly. Captain Chun's expression softened slightly. Nothing. We have no desire to conquer the galaxy. We have no interest in ruling other species. We just want to be left alone. That's why those broadcasts were sent. Not to hide our weakness, but to protect others from our strength. Any ship that enters this system without permission will be destroyed. Any fleet that threatens our worlds will be annihilated. Any species that tries to harm our people will be erased from existence. She smiled again, but this time there was no warmth in it. Go home, Admiral. Tell your collective what you saw here. Tell them about the debris and the warnings and the humans who destroyed the Krath. Tell them to remember this lesson, because we will only give it once. The Sol System is not a place for conquest. It is a graveyard for anyone foolish enough to try. The communication ended. Kethrix stood in silence for a long moment, staring at the floating remains of 40,000 Krath ships. Set course for home, he finally said. Maximum speed. Nobody questioned the order. 3 months later, Admiral Kethrix presented his report to the Valkyrie High Council. He showed them the recordings and the sensor data. He described his conversation with Captain Chun. When he finished, the council chamber was completely silent. What is your recommendation? The High Chancellor asked. Kethrix took a deep breath. My recommendation is that we strengthen the emergency broadcasts. Make them louder. Make them reach every corner of the galaxy. Make sure every species, from the oldest empire to the youngest civilization, understands the same simple truth. He looked at the image of Earth on the display. That small blue planet circling its yellow sun. The humans are not to be disturbed. Not now. Not ever. Let them have their system. Let them live in peace. And pray to whatever gods you believe in that they never decide to expand beyond their borders. The High Chancellor nodded slowly. And if they do expand? If they decide they want more than just their system? Kethrix closed his eyes. In his mind, he saw the debris field stretching across the void. He saw 40,000 ships reduced to scrap metal. He saw the cold eyes of Captain Sarah Chun. Then we run, he said quietly. We run as fast and as far as we can, and we hope that is enough. The emergency broadcasts continued spreading through the galaxy. They reached ancient empires and young colonies. They reached traders and explorers and soldiers. And everywhere they went, they carried the same message. Avoid the Sol System. The humans are not to be awakened. The humans are not to be challenged. The humans are not to be made into enemies. Because in a galaxy full of predators, the greatest predator of all had finally joined the game. And unlike every other species in the stars, the humans were not afraid of the dark. The dark was afraid of them.